Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Security Tapes. Today we are joined by Giles and David, and I won't do the introductions. I'll let the guys do it. So if I can hand straight over to you, Giles, if you'd like to let us know why you're here today, sir.
Hi, I'm Giles. I'm Head of Information Security for the Premier League, and today I'm here to talk a bit about the human aspect of cybersecurity.
Cheers, Giles. And David?
Hi, I am currently the IT and compliance manager globally for We Are Social, and that is a marketing company. And yeah, my chosen topic is what is taking my attention lately. That there's a culture change within companies and agencies in particular.
Nice. Welcome, gents. So, I mean, that sounds like a kind of a bit of a lead there, David. The whole culture, pulling your attention, solving problems. What are currently the big issues you're dealing with?
Yeah, I guess I would imagine that this is the same issue that anyone has when he enters an environment in which security is not something that is the first thing one thinks when he is in that particular industry, right? So while like my previous company was a fintech startup in finance, there was this mindset that compliance and security has to be taken care of since the moment zero. Like in an agency, like where creativity is the main drive, and delivering amazing art and amazing pieces of text and something that catches the attention. Like you would never think that security is important at any point. So like, what am I doing that could be, unsafe? Like, there is.
So, do you feel like with the sort of the creative elements of the company, it's kind of like an uphill struggle?
I think like it's not necessarily like that. There are other kind of companies that are creative as nature, but they also have more security like embedded in the structure because of like the nature of the company. But in particular, when we speak about agencies that are born small and grown organically, if you don't, let's say, force a bit the hand on building the security culture in it, this is not gonna like get there. So there has to be an active drive. Somehow you need to catch the attention and make sure that without slowing down the regular day-to-day work, you want to drive some change. Like make sure that people behave in a slightly different way is going to be different, not necessarily more inconvenient, but different, right? So you are not used to that anymore, and it can create some challenges.
I don't know if you can speak to that, Giles. Obviously, you're in the sports and sort of entertainment side, but and I think the Premier League is a whole sort of different scale to the kind of world that David lives in media. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think there's challenges coming at this from both directions. Everything that David's just described is exactly what I think everyone comes across security in any size of business, and you always want to be a business enabler, and I banged on about it incessantly, but you've got to be security says yes. It's just a matter of how, and then managing the frustration that introduces, because often the yes involves some sort of delay, and quite often security is viewed as just a subset of IT. Even in larger organizations that are incredibly mature in terms of their governance and their processes, the notifications and the human interaction drops out as a result. So where you're in a smaller business, I bet everybody knows David. I bet he could speak to people. I bet he can walk the floor and say hello to people. the Premier League, I can do that. We're an incredibly personable, like, unsurprisingly team-driven organisation. But as you get into larger organisations, and you have to be that process-driven, you have to have the governance in place. It removes the human element, and then try and see security as a human function is very difficult in larger organisations as well. So you've got to try and maintain that person-to-person contact, the human aspect of dealing with security, and not just viewing it as, well, can't you just put a rule on a firewall for me? Why do I have to deal with this?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. Just to pick up on a couple of things both you guys have said. Starting with Davide, really. I mean, I've been doing this at quite a while now, I guess, and I remember the early days of web app testing and how it used to be so unstructured back in them days. We'd literally get a call from certain clients who had a lot of web apps going on, and it'd be, we need a test doing. That's fine. When are you looking at your test? We'll see what we can schedule. I need it doing by next Tuesday. Right, it's Friday. Yeah, no, we're going live on Tuesday. I was like, are we really? Yeah, it's one of them again, isn't it? I goes, secure development lifecycle. They've got involved, they've sat around a table, they've done everything they need to do, and they've let's launch, and someone's gone, have we security tested it yet? Oh yeah, you better get that done. And it literally was a last minute thought to get it done. And that kind of fed into what you mentioned, Giles, really, which is security, that thing that stops stuff. It's a stopper, isn't it, security? And it's like, working across various departments as we all have, I kind of see people within an organisation like at ends of a horseshoe, really. And at one end, you've got your most chartered accountant, and at the other end, you've got your dreamiest dreamer unicorn chasing salesperson, and their core skill sets don't match. I have a running joke with Adam, which is if we were ever crash an aeroplane and we needed to rebuild from the ruins a new one to fly off somewhere else, don't let me build it. You can build it, mate. I'll design it. I'll do outer paint work and describe where we're going to go in this lovely aeroplane, but don't let me near engine. And I think there is that thing, just regardless of that we're in, I guess, the computer environment, it's engineers versus kind of dreamers. And I suppose you must see a lot of that in the creative industry, you guys. I mean, Davide, does that ring true of how you used to find things, and have things changed in terms of things like working with clients and pushing out web apps and advertising programs? Is it what you see these days?
Well, I like, let's say, fortunately, maybe we didn't really develop that many apps, and so this is not really core business. So I didn't have to deal too much with these problems, like in this particular company. But yes, the fact of, like, let's say, maybe starting a new process or a new project or a new client with ideas and things, and just going, okay, we're gonna use this, and this. Oh, there's this amazing AI product that we all love. Like, we all really tried it, and it's so amazing. And so like we just need to get go. And then, but where was the procurement? Like, the procurement pipeline for this for this product? Well, like, who approved it? Like, how is it working? I don't know, but it's free. Oh, it's free. 1 second. This is like for how many users? Like, how does it work? What is the and like and you can see that they just they have no idea that there is a process often that has to be followed until they hit the moment in which the business case reaches the higher levels, and then eventually someone comes to security and says, "Oh, by the way, is this is this agreement okay?" And like we want to start using next week, as you were just just saying. It's like, did anyone read it? No, like, this is why we're telling you. Okay, so let's see, let's start. And this is the point. So no one thought about it beforehand. So it's step by step, speaking with people, speaking with finding ways, we try to educate and eventually change this these processes. And I think that, it's just a matter of, systematically doing it and taking like the things like, these behaviors take time to change. But, eventually you get there. You need to be patient.
And I feel
Frustration
like-
is not helping.
I feel like there's been a little bit of a shift lately, because before there was this attitude of, oh, security is everyone's problem. Everyone is responsible for security. Everyone from the most junior person to the sort of the board need to be invested in it and know about it and be able to practice it well. And I feel like with the conversations that certainly we've been having lately, particularly among sort of C-level and sort of head of level, there's been this shift where they realize that security has perhaps got a bit of a PR problem, and it's been perceived as this department of no, and it's really trying to build those bridges and understand that you're not there to get in the way of them. You're not there to throw up sort of arbitrary barriers, but to, as you said, Giles, actually enable them to do their thing. I would be interested to know what your advice would be to other people in sort of head of roles, if you're trying to build bridges, if you're trying to almost reset the way people perceive security in the organization. Giles, I think you might have a couple of lines for this.
Yeah, maybe. Whether they're effective or the advice is any good
Go for it.
is another question.
Yeah.
There will be key people in any given organisation who know exactly what is going on all of the time. And if you can find that person, the chief of staff, like top level lawyers, they always have their finger on the pulse. People in finance who are doing the financial planning, if you can spend half an hour with them when you get through the door and go, what's happening? Where are we going with this? I'm going to sound cynical here, not a high level strategy, not how are we playing this over 10 years, what is happening tomorrow that is going to blindside you in the next 5 minutes, that enables you to do a bit of research and turn up to those meetings and go, yeah, I heard we're releasing that app on Tuesday, so cool, go for it. I've written up some of the risks around it. Can you just sign here and then we'll look to close those out in 2 weeks? How's that sound? And you wear the risk though, just so you know. And people will go, and there's the problem is, I sound quite glib about that, but there's also the problem of cognitive bias. No one thinks so. Every human is an optimist inherently, no matter how miserable they think they are, and they don't think it will happen to them. So you do still have to retain the bad news bear aspect. You do still have to be like, look at knowing what we know, that's actually odds on to happen. So I really wouldn't take that risk, and I'll put it in writing that I don't think you should. When you're trying to change that and turn the oil tank around, I mean, in small dynamic organizations or organizations that are used to short notice changes, that's far easier than, a big global brand that does things a fixed way and is used to stuff, or law firms, for instance, where it's very process driven. No one wants to colour outside the lines because they like defining the lines and arguing about them. Like it's culturally just anathema to them to do things that way. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of still the title of a book. It's like make friends and influence people, right? Find the right people and just make some friends. Be social, which people don't imagine cybersecurity is a social job. I think they imagine the hooded hacker with the green matrix screen doing the thing, just be a person. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Magic. No, I'm loving it. And I think particularly that really practical thing of you go and talk to the people you wouldn't necessarily think to. I think it's really, really handy. No, I appreciate that.
If I can add on this, I think another point is also to understand how the processes in the company work. Because sometimes we get in that situation in which, for example, like, okay, now you are IT and you fix computers, right? Or you are finance, okay, you just You do accounting. That's it. If you understand a bit better how does it work, so how is the client onboarded? What happens just after that? What is the whole life cycle of a client? Together with the right people, like what Giles is saying, like the subject matter experts of each section of the business, you can understand what are the critical points, and then you can understand where to leverage what knowledge you need to push to the various levels or to the various people, and that could help you, because of course if you tell everyone, if you do this blanket training that everyone has to do because that's compliance, and 90% is going to be irrelevant for what they do every day, everyone is going to get bored, and there's no point, right? Much more important to do like on point for that particular person, if you can. I mean, it's a work, but
Yeah. And just to chip in with that as well, I think I found there's a lot to be gained from adding relevant context. If people are reading about stuff in the news, like the M&S breach, everyone's talking about it. How did it happen? Like the execs are curious, is it going to happen to us? But if you then deliver a tiny bit of training for all of your users around MFA fatigue, for instance, 2 minutes that just says, this is how we think this contributed to that M&S breach you've been reading about in the news. Can you just double check that for me? Thanks. And it's 5 minutes to learn about it. It's relevant and interesting. And then amazingly, everyone will deny it. They'll go to the pub and talk to their mates about, like, oh, guess what we found out at work, apparently, blah, blah, blah. And everyone wants to be a little bit in the know. So it's a quick win for engaging people.
Very nice.
It's great advice. And do you know what's really interesting for me listening to both you guys is I was joking with Adam this morning about how I'm really enjoying my job at Minute Maid. I'm talking to CISOs all around the world. I'm, South Africa, Philippines, South America, all these different places, and speaking to all these guys, and it's fantastic. And so I'm getting a real good flavour for what CISOs think. And I'm talking to you two guys today, and whilst your job title's not CISO, the language you're using, the way you operate is very much what I'm hearing from CISOs at these different organisations. And part of me smiling, particularly with yourself, Chaz, it's almost like you have to be a politician to do your job. It's like it's like a master of.
There's no need to be rude, Finn.
That's going to sour the mood.
but there is that. It's not what you'd expect. It's not, if someone said, "What's it like to be the head of a department?" or for all intents and purposes, a CISO. I'm talking to you guys. We're talking to CISOs really, regardless of what the title is in the organisation. And it's like you wouldn't expect to have to do the things you've got to do to get the message across. And I think one of the big things that can be a challenge, and it's interesting, is a lot of people do come from a very hands-on technical background to become heads of CISOs, the people who carry the book when it comes to security, really. And I think I've heard a few people say, well, the struggle I've got is translating that into something the board understands. And I don't see that being a problem for either of you guys, how you're communicating. But what advice would you give? Let's say you were having a pint with a friend and they were saying, oh, I'm struggling because I'm going to board meetings, I'm giving them metrics until, they're coming out of my ears. I'm telling them about how many missed phishing attacks and how many we've won. And I'm telling them about, what we're doing in terms of patching cadence. I'm telling them about how many CVEs we've got and how we're covering all these things off and dealing with high, medium and low level vulnerabilities. And they just don't seem to get me. What advice would you give to that kind of person about how you communicate with your teams?
Giles?
I was going to say, I think it makes me think of sat with an auditor the other day, and every time we're discussing all these controls, I'm like, I know, do you have a KPI to monitor that? What metrics do you have around it? And I was like, for most of them, none. So what? Like, just because I've put a number on it or I've got a percentage and I look at that every day, and then it implies that there's inherent usefulness in numbers. And I think because of those compliance, and anybody in security is supposed to be, both a mile wide and a mile deep and know everything about everything and have their finger on the pulse. We get lured into, well, it's all right if I can just dial it all down to a percentage or a chart or a little red-green like amber thing, and it doesn't help at the board because they don't care and they don't know what it means. And you trying to explain that is just I started doing it for a board paper when I got here, and immediately I was corrected. No, stop. The so what is what matters. So your vulnerability management's gone through the floor. So what? Oh well, our risk has gone right up. So what? Is it temporary? Is it forever? How much is that likely to cost us? Is there an operational outage? What's the business impact? That's where I think one of the things that's really developed out of the last 20 years of cybersecurity boom that's gone on is the role of the BISO, the person who has to sit in the business and wear that tech decision and go, well, we've done this because this. What's that impact? What's it look like? And be that interface and the human side to it. So if you're going to land something with the board, from my point of view, if you don't have a well-reasoned so what, they are going to skip straight over that. And justifiably, like the number of things that they get in front of them saying we have a cyber risk. So what?
Yeah, that rings
Yeah, I mean,
particularly
it's
true. Sorry, go ahead,
but
David.
I know, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, like, there is, of course, like, you can go and you can become super secure and super whatever, it's like building this amazing, super safe that is inside a super safe truck that travels inside and a super safe highway, and inside it there is nothing. It's like, what are you protecting, right? It's like you need to understand what is the proportion of the effort you've done versus what what you need to say for sure. And it has to be relevant in particular for the business. So of course you cannot approach them as like, oh yeah, this is the trend of blah blah blah. I think like the point here is do your homework and understand for your particular business. So with the analysis that you did before, so seeing like in the risk assessment that you're gonna do, and you're gonna ask people around, what is the most critical asset you have? What is the most critical bit that you need to make sure that it works? What is that makes us money, right? Then you understand what is that could break there. And you find what are the protections that you need to put in place to protect those. Then you can go with the business like leaders and say, look, this is the risk that we are exposed to right now because of, how the business runs. You need to decide whether you want to mitigate it. You want to, what percentage of mitigation you want. If you don't want, then you're going to accept it. But this is your decision. Like, I'm just here to explain to you what risk you know, because maybe you have, because maybe you didn't know before. This is why you hired me, right? So I think this is the critical bit. And this is the talk to the business leaders. Then there is the talk to whoever executes the work. That is a different, like, motivation. While the business leader is motivated by the risk mitigation, let's say in my case, the guy who's gonna do the text for an advertisement somewhere, like, what is his impact if this text goes out before it should go out, right? So like in his particular case, I mean, you're just gonna have like an issue with his manager. That's it. But there is a bigger thing, like there's credibility with the client. There is a set of things that need to be taken in consideration that maybe he never thought about because he was thinking, oh, but I'm just writing some text, So putting things into context will make them understand like the implications of what the risks are. Like if you again, like generic approach, oh look, we need to put in this massive security information security management system because we'll solve all of your problems. Like, yeah, this doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a particular bugbear of mine in terms of systems to solve problems. It's like, again, generally speaking, now we're speaking to people like you guys who are very high up the security maturity curve. But in recent engagements I've had before I joined ThreatTech, I spoke to people who were maybe 50 and 150, 250 user companies. And one of the things I persuaded the leadership team there to do was to let me do free gap analysis, not a charge, just something we could do for our clients. And it kind of horrified me because I was speaking to these people who, in them size organisations, part of their job security, but it's as important as if it's your full-time job, if not more so in some cases, but just because of the size and the constraints of budget and resource, that's where they were. So this gap analysis were quite eye-opening. It was just a red, amber, green, just to give an idea. It wasn't a KPMG were here charging you 75, 250 grand for a month. It were a very quick snapshot. And that's the bit that horrified me, because I realised they were kind of at the mercy of the people who are paid to go and say, look at our product, it solves all your problems. And I literally had a mythical client who had bought Darktrace, were okay. But I found him in real life and we were talking about things. And I said, what framework are you aligned to? And they said, framework. And so I said, yeah, security framework. And we talked a bit about that. And then they said, no, honestly, Vin, seriously, I'm cool. I said, oh, why is that? They said, well, I've got Darktrace. I've gone out and I've got it. Now, Darktrace is if it fits, it's a lovely bit of tooling if you've got the budget and it's part of your tooling you want. No, I'm not knocking it. For this company, they didn't even have MFA. And it just kind of frustrates me that there's this thing that tools can solve the problem. And that the start for 10 is how much money do we spend on security? I just wondered if you guys have got a view on that. If I could start with you, Giles, obviously you've been there 3.5 years. I don't know what you walked into. I don't know where you are now, but what's your view in terms of tooling, and what advice would you give to some of those people lower down the curve faced with maybe a lack of budget, lack of resource, but certainly a need to improve maturity?
So, yeah, talking about the Premier League doesn't really help for most people. What I would say from my experience before the Premier League is, if you haven't looked at the Cyber Essentials questions and run through it and gone, we're all right, then just start there. Anyone can answer that. Anyone in IT can understand that. And you might have gaps, and you might go, yeah, I don't care. We don't have the money for that, or we don't want to do it. Some things aren't terrible, but as a baseline that is really human understandable, you don't have to pay any money for it. Just answer the questions. You get a badge at the end, which is super useful if you need to engage leadership and say, look, we're doing what we need to do, but that's the baseline. I'd go there. I flicked back on this. Perhaps I'm in beyond that. To answer your actual question, Vin, I suppose, is what are security tools for if they're not to take the burden off the person and allow them to do their job? But at the same time, I do believe in the human firewall. So you hear about it all the time, that incidents are caught, things are stopped dead because some bright spark on the service desk went, that's a bit weird. I've worked here 5 years and I've never seen it. I'll just mention it. There's no need to make a big deal. And they mention it. And it's a thing, you switch it off and you've nipped it in the bud. So the human firewall massively exists. And it's sort of a security paradise dream, right? Where all your users report all of the phishing emails they get. Your mail filter automatically tunes itself to be the perfect mail filter because your users tell them exactly what they should and shouldn't see. They don't do it. And why should they? They're not there to be my tuning metric. They are a great sensor, but name one other security tool that you completely rely on to do all of your sensing, like your Darktrace example, Vin. Why would you be relying on one tool and being like, that's fine though, right? So I see both sides of the coin on that. I mean, the human sensor in any network is vital. But at the same time, for the standard business user going about their day doing their stuff, I've been challenged on it, and I entirely agree. Your security tools, A, shouldn't be getting in the way, and B, should be allowing them to do what they need to do. If they need tuning now and then, if things change, sure. But, just because people are traveling to different countries, it doesn't mean that they should immediately be locked out of their laptop unless they're, the Prime Minister or something. Be pragmatic with your security. And that, again, I'll circle back. If you haven't looked at the Cyber Essentials questionnaire, why not?
Yeah, good point. If I like to add on this, I think well, there are some genuinely like, I think, critical points that when you start to have more than 3 people to handle, they get useful, right? So maybe starting with a password manager, I wouldn't say a like SSO solution. That is something that, you know, I think it's good to look at early on. But at least a password manager, you know, something is, it's just the basics, because like even in the non-for-profits that I had, like you know, that I help like with my things, you know, these basic things, MFA on every service, password manager, and I actually, what I advise is also independent sessions for each activity that one does. So, for example, Google Chrome allows you to have profiles, right? So you can have the work profile and the person profile. This is something that I strongly tell people to do, simply because someone can start using his personal account to use some work stuff, and it's, you know, like it just creates a lot of complications. Like anyone who managed any IT knows that, right? So I think there are some tools that are basic, and it's fairly easy to find. How to implement them depends on the company. But on Giles' point, I think the human factor is always the critical one, right? So you want to make sure that the person who is doing a certain thing is aware of what it's doing. I think that is quite critical. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks for those answers, guys. And yeah, so I think we're kind of running out of time a little bit today, so I think it's probably an idea just to kind of wrap up and just say thank you both for joining us. I don't feel we've covered everything that we could talk about. I think we just started a journey, and interestingly, there's a number of people we've spoken to already. I was mentioning earlier, Giles, to David, we've got another 44 episodes lined up. Not guests. There's more guests than episodes. So there's a lot more people that we're welcoming on. And the thing I stress most of all is that this is for you and for the other people in the community. Feel free to connect to each other. Just to check, are you guys happy for people to reach out on LinkedIn who are also in similar roles, just to be part of your network?
Sure.
Good stuff. But that's what, just to clarify, what we're trying to foster is I'm sure you guys both know other heads of, other CISO, other IT professionals, and you get to chat. But what I'd love is that you meet some people you might not have met if it weren't for this podcast, really. And we're looking to build that community out. And we're very serious about it. And just the final point I'll make, because I'm using every angle I can to get people to join our fantasy league, which I've set up in the name of the Security Tapes. And I do believe, Giles, you may be joining. You don't have to confirm it. And I know how this football stuff works. You know, we don't want to talk about it. We can't possibly say, but we have got quite a few people jumping on that. And in all seriousness, it's just another way for us to sort of keep in touch and socialise. But yeah, the offer's there, Giles. I'll let you decide. David, I don't know if you like football. If you're a football person, we do have a fantasy league. I've not met anybody who likes football yet. What's going on?
Security thing.
I think I'm doing motorsports next year.
This may be something that makes me like the particular environment of security people. They don't care about football. And
Yeah.
Good answer. Right, so I'll leave my bit there, but I'd just like to say thank you very much, guys. Your time, which is very valuable, is most appreciated, and certainly we'll be asking you back on a future cast. I know you've got a lot more to offer. I've already thought of a title for the cast as well, and it's going to be So What? Because I think
that's what I was reaching for.
I just feel like I know a lot of stuff and I'm learning more all the time. And that approach, asking what advice you give to people. And you said the first thing I'd do is I'd go and have a look at NCSC's top 10 questions. And if you should know the answer. And when you do know the answer, then ask yourself another question. So what? What does that mean? What does it mean to the business? What does it mean to me? I just think it's fantastic advice. I love it. So this podcast is ergo known as So What?
Yeah. And I think
Just
rings true particularly from my experience as a tester, sort of going through our findings, trying to put together a report and take on some of the security that's worth a damn, frankly. And when you're going through the executive, it's always asking the whole "so what" thing. And I think we get so obsessed as an industry with shiny tools, like especially with the rise of AI. Everyone's obsessed with automating things, and actually, I think the more and more we do that, we realize that there is a real gap to the human, and there's stuff that tools, computers, AI can't touch, and people are crying out for that actual, honest to God, human intelligence that is a bit cynical, is a bit glib, and actually says, oh, does this really matter? So, no, rings really, really true. And on that note, gents, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll wrap it up there.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.